here's where it truly shines. Look what I'm going to do here. I am going to give you just my eye. Okay, and I'm going to crop it. That is a pretty good picture of my eye. Hello, welcome back to the channel. I am here in my room at home, and I'm not live. Not really sure where I was going with that, but anyway, today's a special day for me for two reasons. One, I gotta go shop for a new washer and dryer. Two, I gotta go to Paul's Photo and check out the new Fujifilm GFX100RF. And just like that, I'm back in my office. This was the first live event in the entire state of California for the GFX100RF, and there was a lot of people in there. A little bit hectic, so I decided to shoot the video in my office and just talk about the camera and show you some of the footage that I took while I was in the store. Long story short, this camera is awesome. I love it. I'm going to try and get through some talking points pretty quickly because odds are if you're watching this video, you've probably seen a lot of other videos from those lucky YouTube influencers that got to keep this camera for an entire week. And you probably already are up to speed on the features and some of the new differences between like the X100 series and this GFX100RF, such as the aspect ratio dial and the in-camera crop dial. I will touch on those briefly, but I'm going to try and get through as much of this as possible. So let me show you some of this footage and I'll talk a little bit about the cameras, and we'll just wait until they come out because I want one. I can't afford one, but I want one. Okay, so I'm going to start by saying me personally, I prefer this to the X100 series. This is a GFX100 medium format, 102 megapixels. I always found the X100 series a little bit limiting for me because even though I do go out often and just take one lens, so I'm kind of working with a fixed focal length, I found spending that kind of money on a fixed focal length camera a little bit limiting when for almost the same price you can get a nice X-T5 body with the same sensor, only you open yourself up to being able to change the lens. And I think that that's a little bit more plausible for the money spent than to have the X100 series, especially when the X-T5 is actually a pretty compact camera, especially when you put these little 18 f2s, even smaller when you take the lens hood off. And you got a pretty powerful system. Now, I do realize you want one camera to maybe carry with you every day and things like that, and that might make the X100 appealing to you. I think the GFX100 is more appealing for the reasons that I will get into, mostly the resolution, and that's why I'm really excited about this camera over the X100 series. So I will also say this, this camera is for most people, I think, that are already experienced photographers and you are wanting a camera that you can carry with you every day when you don't really necessarily intend on shooting. Can you use this camera to shoot with intention, like in a studio or something like that? Yeah, sure, absolutely. It's a very powerful camera and it has all the flash sinks and everything like that that you could use in studio or for portraits and things like that. However, with the fixed focal length, it might be a little bit limiting, but then again, with the 102 megapixel sensor, you have a lot of power to crop and get different looks that you may not be able to get with one single camera with a fixed lens. But anyway, it is a fully fledged camera for mostly experienced users, I would say. And for me, it would be a great camera for street photography, or like I said, just carrying with you every day to have something there in case you want to take a really good photo or just some sort of spontaneous photo without having to bring your whole kit with you. With that said, I will show you a photograph of the X100VI right next to the GFX100RF right here, and you can see that it is not that much bigger. They are the same length, they are the same thickness. The GFX is just slightly taller than the X100, and then I will show you this other picture. Keep in mind, my XH2S does have a Peak Design capture clip on the bottom, so it's about a 1/4 inch taller than normal. For reference, I will show you this X-T5. The GFX is about the same height if you consider this the top of the camera. So the GFX is about this tall. It's, next to it, it'll look a little bit bigger, but it's not really. It's actually very small and very lightweight. So let's move on. I will show you some footage that I took here at Paul's and feature some of the different things here. First, we'll take a look at the exterior of the camera. Oh, I don't want that. Hold on a second. All right, I was playing back the video with the sound. Anyway, let's take a look at the outside of the camera. It's really not that much different than an X100 and I'm pointing right now at the focus ring, letting you know that that is the focus ring, and the ring that's in between the lens hood and the focus ring is not necessarily a functional thing. It's basically you fix it onto the lens and it weather seals it. It helps with the weather sealing as well as it helps with the travel. So I will show you my X100 or my X100's on my mind. Let me show you my X-T5 real quick. You can see that when I focus, you'll see that the lens moves. See that? So that happens with the GFX100RF, unless you put that middle ring over it. The middle ring helps seal it from that movement so that the water doesn't get in where the lens can move in and out. You then complete the sealing by putting what most of us would call a UV haze filter. It's just a clear filter over the lens, and that helps seal it from any water getting inside. You do not need the square lens hood to make it fully waterproof, but it is included with the kit. Everything that you see here is included. The ring, the protective filter, the lens hood, and the camera strap. All of it is included. And like I said earlier, if you're watching this video, you're probably already familiar with things like this, the aspect ratio dial. I personally would never use this. I think it's a great idea for a lot of people that do a lot of in-camera work. I don't do a lot of in-camera work. I focus mostly on composition and exposure, and then I do all the cropping and stuff like that in post. I do all my coloring and all that kind of stuff in post. I know that Fujifilm, you know, they're known for their film simulations. However, I don't really ever use them. I prefer to use, if you have your Lightroom or Capture One set up correctly, you should have all of the available film simulations on the camera that you use also available in Lightroom. I like to add them in post. That way I can take one photo and add multiple film simulations to it. So personally, I won't be using the in-camera crop as I'm sort of demonstrating here. I also won't be using the aspect ratio dial because I choose to shoot in RAW and do all this stuff after the fact. However, I do like that it's built in because a lot of people that will be buying this camera want to do as much as possible in camera and shoot JPEG that they don't have to edit it, or they can just do minor contrast edits and get it on out the door. Here you can see I'm showing it. That is a big camera. That is a GFX100. And this is a GFX100RF. Big difference in thickness. Size is the key here. So they tried to make this camera as small and as compact as possible, just like the X100 series. Here we have the X100 right next to it. That did come at the sacrifice of IBIS. And from my understanding, that is because if they were to put IBIS in there, it wouldn't have changed thickness of the camera. But in order to give it enough room for the sensor to move around, they would have had to make a modification to the size of the lens, which would have made the camera weigh a little bit more and be a little bit heavier, a little bit more bulky. And that was something that they didn't want to do. So it does have some digital stabilization, and I will show you here a little bit. They did let me take photos with it. I put my card in it. I shot some JPEGs. I shot some RAWs. I will show them to you here in a few minutes and show you where the camera really shines as far as changing the focal length. The outward appearance really isn't too much different than the X100 series. I'll show you this other clip here. It does not have an optical viewfinder. I think most of you that are watching this video probably already know that. I don't find that a limitation personally because all the cameras I've used up until this point either had an optical viewfinder because they were a DSLR, or all the other ones have been strictly electronic viewfinder. So for me, it's not really taking a step back or anything. It's just, it's normal. It's normal for me. Then the other thing I really liked about this camera is in order to sort of complete its everyday carriness, it does have a built-in glass 4-stop ND filter that can be activated by pulling the lever that you would normally pull for the optical viewfinder to switch between the optical rangefinder and the electronic viewfinder. If you pull it and hold it, it will drop 4 stops of ND for you, which is nice because with the medium format and all the light coming in, you might need it during a sunny day, and you can leave your NDs at home because it has one built in. Very nice. Really like this camera. I think aesthetically it looks nice. I like the lack of branding on it, if you will. I like that it's just kind of plain, and I think the camera is a really great idea for those who are experienced photographers and just want to kind of carry stuff. Now it is a little bit on the large side, but it's lighter weight than my XH2S and a 16mm attached to it, and especially with like micro attachments that I normally have. I probably wouldn't ever shoot video with this camera. It is nice to have the option if, like, say your camera's right here and your dog's doing something funny and you want to capture that video. Excuse me. It's springtime and I'm having a little bit of trouble breathing today. Anyway, it's nice to have the video option, but I probably wouldn't use it. This would be strictly a photography camera for me. And anyway, I think it's a brilliant idea. Let's get into some of the things, the photo quality. So let me just quickly pull up that video so I can talk about it with you. Okay, so now I'm going to talk about the image quality. So here you can see this is a photo that I took of myself. It is a selfie. It is at 1/60th of a second, ISO 400, and you can see here, you know, ISO 400, 35mm, wide open, f4. It looks pretty good. You can see the depth of field. It nailed the focus on my eye. I'm assuming it was this right eye here because it's the one that's open the most, but look at the amount of detail that's here. This is at 100%, and there's a lot of detail. You can see there's dust on my glasses. You can see the pores in my skin. You can see the nice roll off right there where my cheek is. You can see it starts to get my ears get a little bit blurry, so there's a decent roll off for the background separation. You can see that the background is actually pretty, it's pretty blurry in my opinion. You can see these neons here, they're pretty blurry, and they're bleeding out like into the air a little bit, and you can't see the pictures behind me. They're pretty blurry. I think that, you know, even though it's an f4, you still have a decent depth of field, especially for a fixed focal length, and I don't see any issues with that. Now here's one I'm shooting at the base ISO of ISO 80. Again, wide open, f4 at 1/120th, and when I zoom in, you can see that there is a little bit of blurriness there. That is because it doesn't have IBIS. I did not have the digital image stabilization turned on, and it was at 1/20th, so there's some motion blur there. That is not a focus miss. That is me shaking my hands when I took this photo. But again, I think it looks pretty good. Not any noise that I can see, and the background, you know, it looks good, nice, contrasty, and still the depth of field is good. That's not perfect. I mean, if you're using a GFX50 or something else, you're going to see a lot of differences in the depth of field, especially when you're using a different lens. But I think for a fixed focal length, this is great. And then here's where it truly shines. Look what I'm going to do here. I am going to give you just my eye. Okay, and I'm going to crop it. That is a pretty good picture of my eye. I don't know how many megapixels this is, but there's a lot of detail in my eyebrows, my eyelashes, my eye, the reflections, the dust. You know, so if I wanted just a picture of my eye, that would be it. I don't know what focal length that would be equivalent to, but it works. It just works. And I think that that's where this camera really shines. And I like this camera a lot. I do have some, you know, other places that my finances need attention, so I will not be pre-ordering one of these cameras, but I would like to. I probably will own one at some point in time. Here's a photograph of my Fujifilm XH2S that I took. You can see that the front there is a little bit blurry. That's because I focused on the word Fujifilm, so everything either in front or behind that you should start to see the depth of field roll off in the front and the rear. And you can see that the background is still pretty smashed. When I zoom out, you can see there's arms of the Fuji rep and a sales rep here. They're pretty in focus, but you know, if you were focusing on somebody's face, the background is still, I don't know. I think the depth of field is fine given the compactness of the camera and who they were trying to market it to. If you need more than that, then obviously you can be using a different camera system with interchangeable lenses, but I think this is great. I like the camera. I mean, like I said, it was hands-on, kind of. I got cumulative time about 20 minutes with this camera, and I really enjoyed it, and it did sell me. I think that it's a great idea, especially for the price. I mean, it's the cheapest that I know of medium format camera that's on the market right now, and I think that that's a good idea. I always said that this would be a good idea for somebody to do. You know, and it may be, like for me, it might be the only medium format camera that I would ever need, and the reason for that is because I do a lot of video and I do a lot of photos out on the streets, and I think that APS-C size works well for me for the stuff that I do. It gives me a versatility of having cheaper lenses that reach out a little bit farther than the full frame ones without compromising too much image quality, especially with cameras like the XH2S that have sorry about that, that have a good amount of dynamic range, as well as, you know, a lot of color data for video and things like that. But then I can have this medium format and do a lot of really interesting things with it as far as photos go. I could probably do some video with it too, but you're definitely not going to be vlogging or anything because it doesn't turn around and it's just no stabilization, and it's going to turn out kind of bad. But anyway, for photos, amazing. Some fixed video on a tripod, probably pretty good too. But anyway, that's about it. I will leave you with a couple more photos here of my XH2S and the X100 together so you can kind of see that one more time, because it's really hard to convey. While I'm watching videos of it, it's just, you can't really see how light it is and how small it actually is in comparison with other cameras, and I think that the camera really shines. So anyway, that's what I learned. If you want to know more about the details and controls of the camera, there are a lot of other videos out there. This is just my opinion of a hands-on and someone who shoots predominantly APS-C with other Fujifilm cameras and has used full frame in the past, what I would use this camera for and why I like the idea of it. I probably won't be pre-ordering one. I may wait till they have a Mark II or something like that where the price is more feasible for me. Like I said, right now, there's other things in my life that need financial attention other than another camera. But I think that this would be a good thing for me to invest in for the future, you know, maybe a couple of years down the line. And I'm really excited to see where they go with this, and I hope it sells well, and that they may come out with a version 2 or a Mark II in the future, and that it might make this one a little bit cheaper and more attainable for people like me, because I do think that there's a lot of creativity that can be had with such a camera, especially just carrying it around as an everyday carry camera. Anyway, that's all for now. Hope you got something out of this video. Let me know what you think about the camera in the comments down below. And I'm going to start winding down by going back and playing some more Assassin's Creed Shadows. So I will see you guys next time.